Hey, Tyler, thanks for joining us today. As way getting started, give us a little background on yourself.
Of course, very excited to be here, Brian. Been a big fan of yours for a long time. So excited to speak with you and the audience. Tyler McGrath. I'm on the senior strategic team at Samsara. We're an IoT company based here in the Bay Area. Really fast growing company. Of course, a lot of fun. Also comes with a lot of headaches, especially in sales. But if you're in sales, you might as well sell the most expensive stuff. So that's a good part for sure.
So you guys are at the high end when you say expensive?
Yeah, we're definitely a premium product, which has its advantages, but also disadvantages. When you walk into any room, you're going to be the most expensive product, but also the most fun car to drive off the lot. When
Yeah.
it works well.
And who do you sell to? Who's the persona that you're after?
Yeah, it's a wide range. So we could get anyone from fleet or safety managers. We work with a lot of trucking companies, transportation. We also do site security, so you can get directors of IT, COOs, and of course you want to get to the CEO for the sign on the dotted line.
And do you get much inbound as far as demand?
Yeah, we do have an inbound engine. We've got about 25,000 customers now. So what's really exciting is when we release new product lines, you can double dip into current accounts. I've heard some stat, I don't know if it's true, it's 7 times easier to sell to a current customer than it is net new. So it is nice to have the innovation of new product lines. Makes your job as a salesperson a lot easier.
Well, what's the hardest part of it?
That's a great question. It's competitive. It's a very competitive marketplace. We really consolidate 5 or 6 different technology providers into one platform. So you really need to know the landscape of what you're going up against, what's working, what's not working. And these are large, enterprise size deals. So, they take a year or more, and, time kills all deals. So you really need to stay, relevant, continue with value prop. It's, most things you run into there.
Now, it sounds a lot more complex than like Glassdoor.
Yes, very different than Glassdoor, that's for sure. And I was working for the San Diego Padres before that, selling season tickets. So a little bit more complex there. I wouldn't say it's easier, but selling season tickets in America's greatest city for the time when they were like the worst team in baseball wasn't too easy. But yeah, very different than the HR space. HR is a great space. It is primed still for disruption. But I like to sell a physical product, and that's advice that I would give to anyone. You need to be able to hold it in your hands. It can still be tech, it can still be software, but when you can actually have a physical product to deploy, to install, it makes you a lot stickier as a provider, which makes you harder to replace.
Because you need them to take action, something that they can test drive.
Exactly. It's
Yeah.
kind of like Apple. You have the product in your hand, you open the box, it's the buying experience. And when you're installing, 30-minute to an hour installs and 500 trucks, you really don't want to have to do that again. Um, it's not just a flip of a switch to a new software. These trucks go all over the country.
Yeah.
You don't want to have to get them back.
And how was that transition from because HR, it's pretty well understood, to trucking, which I'm sure you didn't have any understanding of at all.
Zero understanding. It's a fascinating industry, and I think it became even more prevalent here during the pandemic, right?
Yeah.
You take for granted when you order a toothbrush on Amazon and it gets there in 24 hours, right? There is so much that goes on behind the scenes there that really is fascinating, especially with the Suez Canal blockage that happened this year. We've got massive container ships that are just stuck in the Long Beach and the Houston harbors. It is one global trade, and we're playing a part in that. But as a consumer, you want stuff right then and there. You order a Lyft or an Uber, it's there in 5 minutes. You order a toothbrush, it's there in 24 hours. But there's a lot that goes on behind the scenes, and truck drivers are play a big part in that. They sacrifice their family time, a more normal life in order to provide that. And I really enjoy giving them a service that makes their life easier.
And you've done really well there. What do you attribute that to, other than natural skill and talent?
Yeah, I think that only takes us so far. Sales it's a roller coaster. You really have highs and you really have lows. And to be in it, I think as long as we have, Brian, you really need to keep an even keel. And you need to obsess about your customers. If they text you late on a Friday, they need something done, it's mission critical for their business. And if you're able to get them that, there's a lot of loyalty out there still. And, if you bend over backwards and you give them the customer support post sale, I mean, the most powerful thing in my business is referrals.
Yeah.
Right? It's so much easier to walk into an account when the COO, the CEO is kind of hand holding you on a personal email or a phone call, or maybe take everyone out to lunch. And you got to treat people right to get to that place. And so it's kind of like a snowball. You push a snowball off the top of a mountaintop. It's really slow build. Some of them fizzle out like most people do in sales, but eventually you get to a point where that snowball is just getting bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. And your work is getting your quota really for you, where the people are.
Yeah, the kind of a compounding thing that a lot of reps don't think about. They more transactional, hunt, shoot, kill, eat, hunt, shoot, kill, eat, right?
Exactly.
Which maybe Glassdoor was more like that, but you had a big brand name there. Has your brand been recognized yet? Is it a leader? I don't know the space at all.
Yeah, no, it actually is a leader. It's a fascinating company. It's actually the second fastest growing company in all the United States. I started actually North America. I started about 4 years ago. I was like 150 employee, and now we're over 2,000, multiple countries. So really exciting. It's a huge help having a really strong marketing team. I know sales and marketing don't always get along, but we need to come closer together, guys. But it is very powerful when you don't have to spend the first 10 minutes of a phone call explaining who you are. They've seen you at a road show. They've had a friend that's using you. They've seen your truck, driving down the road. So that is very helpful.
And have they figured that out on the marketing side? Because I got to imagine, that demographic, that persona is not exactly on Facebook and Instagram all day, right? Getting
Yeah.
to them is probably a mystery, right?
It's a great point. So in this space, you've got really two sides. You've got owner operators where you are an individual and you own maybe one truck. And then you're, a FedEx or a UPS, and you've got hundreds of thousands of trucks. We focus more on the UPSs and the FedExes that control large amounts of assets. So those people are on LinkedIn and Facebook and Instagram for the most part. So it's actually not too different. But you really need to get driver buy-in, and that's the part of my job that is the most difficult, where you've got guys that are driving 12 hours a day, but you need to train them on how to use your application. Because if the drivers don't like it, doesn't matter how awesome your technology is, no one up top is going to buy it, because the drivers are the lifeblood of any organization.
And what's in it for them? What's their win personally?
Yeah, so there's something called the ELD mandate, electronic logging device mandate. Basically, it says, a truck driver can only drive so many hours throughout the week or day. That was actually suspended during COVID, kind of in an emergency. We needed stuff now.
Yeah.
But for the driver, these guys are working hard. They just want to drive. So giving them an easy application to use that gets them back to doing what they do best is the business that we're in.
Yeah. And how have you evolved there? Because, very complex sale, long time frame. What were the first deals like?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think it comes down to aligning yourself with a mission critical product, a need to have, not a nice to have.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of sales reps, especially earlier in their career, really want to take the first thing, the quick promotion out of SDR into AE, right? The quick accelerated growth you hear from recruiters, and that might all be well and good, but learning the basics is very, very important. But also learning the basics at a company that who you're selling to can't operate their business without you. And that's what I learned moving from the HR space and the season ticket space. Very much, nice to have.
Nice to have, a luxury.
The first time there's an economic downturn, people aren't going to baseball games and people aren't hiring, right? But trucks are still moving. So think about and ask yourself those questions when you are applying and looking to your next sales role.
So then the next thing is, since you're at the top end of the market, how do you separate yourself and justify that delta?
Questions.
Yeah.
You got to ask questions. The value is there. But if you're just feature pointing, those are pennies on the dollar. You need to align yourself with mission business critical attributes. So, one easier to use feature that you could breeze through that a COO may think, hey, that's cool, but what does that mean for my business?
Yeah.
Hey, this feature means that you can upload fuel receipts within seconds and you can get these people paid faster, lessen the downtime. And that could be $80,000 a month for how much you guys spend in fuel, right? Now, my product that's 8% more than the next guy is nothing.
And who makes the product selection? Not the economic one, but the product. Is it the truck drivers? Is it the people?
Yeah, the truck drivers have influence, but you've got this mid-tier management at these operations. Yeah, fascinating side of any business. These people, in my opinion, work harder than anyone. They're the ones that make the company run, the day-to-day operations, right? They're not eye in the sky thinking about what's next, which is very important, but they're the ones, getting product out the door. They're the ones making the paychecks. They're the ones that have the pulse with, employee, morale. So these people have their hands in every bucket. And so getting them on board is a huge momentum boost when you get up to the C-level, when you've got a driver on board, you've got mid-level management on board. This is kind of that big snowball coming right at you. You can't say no.
But then it gets to finance and to CEO, and they're like, didn't you check the other options? What?
Of course. Absolutely. And those are all really good questions to ask during your discovery.
Yeah.
If you get to the end and the CEO isn't aware of the project and you didn't know that, you've already failed.
And the CEO is the clear economic, or can they get overturned by like the operations guy? Go, look.
No, the most powerful person that I've seen, and usually the smartest guy in the room that everyone listens to, is the director of IT. Right? Yep. This could all seem like the best idea in the world, and then your director of IT says, hey, this doesn't work on our network, and you're back to square one.
Because they're kind of a naysayer. They're not really a user.
They're not really a day-to-day user, I'd say, but they're responsible to make sure that all technology is working within the business. And so if you're introducing this foreign object that's going to mess up their flow, no one really else understands what the director of IT does, especially at the C-level. Most don't have a technical background. And so they're most often the smartest person in the room.
But can they switch, or they probably can't decide to no go with the technology, but they can point in a different vendor?
Yes, great point. So if you get the buy-in from the driver, and then you get the buy-in from the mid-level management, and you get the buy-in from the C-level executive, but the director of IT says, hey, this doesn't scale with our business, you're back to square one. So it's definitely a big box that you need to check. You don't run into it as often, but it is kind of like the nuclear launch codes. So if they pull those, your deal that should have taken 8 months is now 18 months.
And given that it's a high dollar amount, I got to imagine that your competitors want the deal just as bad as you do, right?
Yeah, you're going up against the best of every company, which is exciting. When you get to dollar amounts of this size, you're not walking into, first or second year experience.
Yeah.
That would be great if that happened. If anyone's listening, go for it.
You're not going to win just because you followed up more often. There has to be some strategic difference there.
Exactly, Brian.
What have you learned along that way, where maybe at the first couple of deals you didn't cover some bases, or you got?
Yeah, what I've really started to do is bring the buyer along with me. So I like to create actually shared documents with after our first kind of deep discovery calls, list everything that's been important to them, have like a satisfied, not satisfied, or in progress kind of bar that will highlight it in red, yellow, or green. And so when we get to the end of evaluation, especially during negotiation, I've got everything that their team has ever said. They've probably even forgotten half of this stuff. Yeah. When we present to the board, I've got everyone's name attached to it, links, buy-in, quotes from drivers, quotes from mid-level management. And now they're a part of the process. And so when you get to a board or to a C-level, you can really turn to them and have them sell the technology for you. And you're just kind of there to answer questions. And that is such a much stronger place to be in when you've got a company internally selling the product for you, as opposed to you, kind of pushing the cart up the hill.
And how do you make sure that your competitor isn't doing a better job than you?
Yeah, I mean, you really can't. You can do the best that you can, in my opinion, on every deal. And you really need to qualify, which I think is the most important part of the sales process, especially at deal sizes of this large. You're going to be in. This is your life. This is your career. You're investing hours into this business, and if there really isn't an open project or C-level buy-in prior to you jumping in, you got to go to the next one.
Is it just a science experiment then, or is it just like a market study or
Just to stay busy, I guess,
right?
and that's the worst part when you're spinning your wheels
And have you seen reps go down that
all the
rat hole?
time. It happens to everybody. I'm not immune to it. You get the happy ears when you're on the phone. Oh, they love the product.
Yeah.
The technology was great. Like, there's no budget. No one knows he's looking at this. This is his third day on the job, right? You get the happy ears, and you open the opportunity. Then your manager loves you, and you're just going to disappoint them even more. 6 months down the line.
Well, that's it. I hear managers focusing on meetings and stuff, and it's like, yeah. It's like,
how many dials did you get in this week? Did you send an email?
Right. We're not in the dating business. We're in the closing business.
Absolutely.
And what are those questions? You mentioned a couple of them. Is there budget? Are they doing this by themselves? Is there some kind of initiative from the top down? Is there some kind of compliance thing that kicks in?
Absolutely. So a lot of these things you legally have to have a product like ours, which is another great point when you're looking at your next sales job. Are there other forces at play here? Either they're going to buy you or somebody else. They're not going to not do anything. They legally can't, right? That's a huge barrier. So questions I like to ask is, is this an approved project? Right? Does C-level know about this? Does the board know about this? And a lot of times, is there an investment company on the side that isn't a part of your day-to-day leadership that will be invested in this? Do you guys have a current technology in place? How much time do you have left on your current contract? Great. You got them to the finish line, and they've got 2 more years, and they can't wait to sign up with you in 2 years, right? You're like, great. Thanks. I'm an idiot. Great questions to ask. Do they have the time to install, right? Do you need to bring third-party installers in there? That's a big part of it. Once you buy the technology, that's day one. You got to get it in all the trucks, right? So yeah, and there's a ton more, but when you become more conversational with it, when it's not like, hey, I'm putting my sales hat on now, I'm going to ask you all these questions. It's a conversation. It doesn't have to be a discovery for 15 minutes at the beginning, and then you demo in the middle and you close at the end. They're people. At the end of the day, they're just like you. Talk to them.
Right. And how do you stay away from that? Who you are, what you do, how's it work, what's it cost? Is it that conversation? Is it you design these questions to engage and determine where they are?
Yeah, it does start with the conversation. And rapport, right? But when someone asks you in the beginning of every conversation, even when you're passing somebody in the hallway, hey, how you doing today? Right? What does everybody say?
Good. How are you?
I'm good. How are you? I'm good. How are you?
They go back and forth, right?
Exactly. They're giving you a window right there to say whatever you want. I threw my back out last night. Someone asked me, I'm doing terrible today, Frank. I haven't been in the gym for 18 months. I laced the shoes up for the first time, and now I'm a 40-year-old man. My back is totally out. Like, man, do you play any sports? Boom. And now you're talking about anything else besides the technology that you're trying to sell. And now 15 minutes down the line, his kids' names, he's got 2 dogs, he plays lacrosse, and his lawn is dying. Right. And now you're friends.
Well, that's it, because the best people I've seen do that have something that's very relevant to everybody. I had somebody who said, their response was always, can't be that bad. I had a croissant and a great cup of coffee this morning. Now, everybody eats breakfast, right?
Yeah.
And, most people like coffee, like Danish, hate Danish, but everyone eats.
Yeah. And they get an opinion on it.
Yeah, and they eat it for a reason. only thing available, something they love. And all of a sudden, now you take it from rep client to people.
Exactly. And that sounds so easy, but why does everyone forget to do it?
Well, I think we become a rep, so we think we have to act like a rep, which is the worst thing you can act like. Because who wants to talk to a sales rep?
I don't. I hate it when salespeople call me.
Yeah, but everyone likes to talk to a friend,
Yeah.
to like a peer, somebody in the same space,
Yeah.
right? Who know you're an expert in this space. And they're all curious about how it works, why
Yeah.
you exist and why you're more expensive than something else.
Yeah. And something that I've noticed most recently is I think a lot of salespeople are trying, they're pulling you, right? They're pulling you in the direction that they want you to go in. There's a lot of really talented salespeople that make a lot of money that do that. But what's the first reaction that you have when someone pulls you towards them?
You back away.
Yeah, like, hey, dude, like, what are you doing? But if you push someone away from you, what's their first reaction?
No, why? What I
Yeah,
do wrong?
they're also just naturally like if you're out in the street, you push somebody, they're going to lean forward. Like, I don't want to fall back,
Yeah.
right? So in sales, I think it needs to be a little bit more push than what I've been seeing, and less pull, right? If you really want to be, a consultant sale, right? You can tell people no, right? If it's a smaller thing, hey, maybe you can point them in another direction, right? You're going to build some trust. Maybe we're not the best fit for you right now. Maybe they are, maybe they're not. But as soon as you tell someone they can't have it, kind of like the mean girls, you can't sit with us, they're going to lean in even more, which I found to be really, really powerful.
It is, the takeaway or the neg, whatever you call it, it says, I'm not desperate.
Exactly.
And it builds trust because you're showing their interest is higher than yours.
Mm-hmm.
What they really need is more important than what I need to sell.
Yeah.
And then
There's
if
a,
you,
do you know who Key and Peele is? They're two comedians on Comedy Central.
yeah, sure.
Okay, so they do this really amazing skit
Cold call
where
one.
the cold call skit,
Yeah.
and I'm like, that is it. That is, of course you don't say those exact words, but that is the feeling that you can have with people. I'm gonna buy 10 deluxe delivery, packages vacation wise, and like that's what I think we can get to more, and it's an ever evolving process.
And what do you see your kind of either your peers or people new in the space doing wrong? Is it the talking about the product and not the problem? Is it not qualifying?
No, that's a good question. I think qualifying number one is the most important thing to do in sales, and especially when you're first starting out. Most people start as like an inbound or an outbound ADR, SDR, and every company has a different name for it. And you're really measured on metrics, only metrics, not quality of conversation. You get a qualified op that counts to your 5 for the quarter. I'm like, wait, hold on a second, but this deal closed for 20K, but the next guy's deal closed for 500K. Why is that the same? I don't get that, because we're measured on how much revenue we bring in.
Right.
I don't understand why we're teaching people something totally backwards. Then all of a sudden they're a closing rep and the whole world's changed, right? I think the reorganization of the ADR, BDR, SDR world could have big impacts on training. When people are calling in, the C-level, they know you're a first year sales rep. You can just tell, right? You're not bringing any value to the conversation with a cold call, right? It's as opposed to, hey, I'm calling from Samsara and we sell sensors that go in your trucks. Do you have any need for sensors? As opposed to, hey, Frank, I'm actually working with Bob down the street. We helped him with X, Y, and Z. They saved X on accidents. Just curious. I was actually in the area. I can stop by next week. Do you want to grab lunch? That's a friend.
Yeah.
Right.
And those things have to almost be unlearned, because most of the people are coming out of school where they came out of partying and they had to talk to strangers all day. And now they're taught to read a script.
Yeah.
That makes them feel creepy. People on the other end don't like it. And they're measured by how often they do dumb things.
You nailed it. You nailed it.
A recipe for success.
Yeah, you're going to President's Club to the moon.
And it is, that's why I always saw and do see sales as counterintuitive. Like your example, one deal is 5 million and one's 50K. They're not equal deals.
No. Why are SDRs being incentivized like they are equal?
Right. And, and I see it coming all the way down from the VCs all the way down because they all use conventional logic. It's like, okay, if the pizza takes 30 minutes at 300 degrees, if you turn it up to 600 degrees, can it be done in 15 minutes?
More pizza for everybody.
Yeah. Can you get 3 women to have a kid in 3 months?
No.
Certain things, there's a nature to it. And it's an intelligent process. It's not just activity.
Yeah. And that's a failure of, the last generation of sales leadership. Maybe that worked more when you could hammer out 150 dials and there wasn't mass email and all these insight and analytics. Is that a leadership? To me, that's a leadership problem.
It's a leadership problem. Yeah. Because, they buy these tools. They look at the people, the unicorns in the tornado.
Yeah.
But are you a unicorn in the tornado? Probably not. You're probably a little sheep out in this little barren field trying to find something to eat.
Yeah.
But how about burnout? How have you handled that?
Yeah, this has been difficult. You're working in your apartment.
You mean your penthouse?
Your penthouse apartments. I'm in the Bay Area, so I'm paying for a penthouse. Unfortunately, it's been difficult. It has, and as you go through your career, and you take a sick day, and you're really not that sick. You just want to be at home, and I can answer emails from home, and that's just the grass is greener on the other side. But as a salesperson, I think kind of inherently we are social people for the most part, and we need the energy of the office. Because as we talked about that roller coaster earlier, it's your teammates, it's the the guy on the other block of desks over there that your buddies with that can bring you out of the down. The getting out of the down when you're just working from home, especially during the pandemic, was going on Apple News or something and reading that the world's ending. Right? There was
that's the down.
I'm like, well, this is getting better from here, but I did miss the office. I really did. I missed the camaraderie of the office. I missed the Friday happy hours. And I think when you're all in this together, especially in sales, it's really, really important. And so managing burnout, I was reading that, more people are leaving the workforce now or changing jobs than ever. And I'm like, guys, the grass isn't greener. You're going to find yourself in another position doing the same exact thing. That's more of an introspective thing than it is, I personally think, a job thing.
How have you kept it from not bottoming out? Because
I got a dog. No, the dog is great, but you got to appreciate the small wins. And it's cliche. You learn it when you're an SDR, but it's true. I go for a walk, after my morning calls every day. Very similar to you. You have to appreciate the smaller things, because if you're treating sales as a lifelong profession, every time you close a deal, you're just starting the next one, right? It can feel like Groundhog Day, but you really need to celebrate those. Life is too short.
And did you go, for you, I take it was like office fun to home alone?
No, I was more, office grind to after office fun, gym, and then, weekend warrior.
Okay. Yeah, because certainly people, who had that and now it's gone.
Yeah.
It's a big contrast.
It's huge.
Yeah. Any
huge.
advice for people out there who are kind of at that middle level, kind of you 5 years ago?
Yeah. Ask yourself this question, and always ask yourself this question when you're in sales. If you close a deal and you're not excited about it, doesn't give you that little kind of kid butterfly feelings, then get out. It's not your thing, and that's okay. There's plenty of things to do, but if you still get that burning, you're fired up, you love the thrill, I almost like the chase more than the actual close. But if you don't get that butterfly feeling on a big meeting, or you're not nervous, or you jump up, high five a buddy when you close a deal, it's time to move on.
Yeah. Cool. Hey, where can people find you on LinkedIn?
Yeah, Tyler McGrath on LinkedIn. I'm out here in the Bay Area working at Samsara, fantastic company. We're definitely hiring. Brian, you have amazing content as always. Keep going on your long walks, because that seems where you do your best thinking.
I got to get a dog.
Yeah, get a dog. Golden Retriever is the best.